do you see the tofu?
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Eating Vegan with Nick, and today we have a returning guest. What's going on, Chef Quiaufa? How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
This returning guest is one of my favorite people. We just spent so much time making an incredible meal, and today's meal is tofu and dumpling soup. Tell me a little bit about this soup and how you kind of came up with this idea.
So my grandfather would make chicken and dumpling soup when I was a child. So I reimagined the dish using tofu instead of using chicken.
Wow.
And I used spelt flour instead of regular dumplings to add more protein. So this is like a dish of nostalgia, reminding me of like all of the love that I felt growing up and how I was nurtured and nourished in my childhood.
Do you hear that? She basically took what she was used to eating, what she grew up eating, what was very warm and loving, especially coming from her grandfather, and no longer eating meat. She said, well, I don't have to stop the tradition. I can just, make some substitutes and still have that homey, earthy, grandfather reminiscent feel to this dish. And I think you did an incredible job.
Thank you.
After our first episode, we got so much positive feedback. I said, you know what, we gotta figure out a way to get Chef Quiaufa back in the kitchen. And we were able to do that, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But enough of me talking. We're here to do two things. That's cook and eat.
So I'm gonna make a marinade first for the tofu. So I'm gonna start off with the miso. Like I explained, the tofu, we know tofu doesn't have any taste to it. So we're gonna put about a quarter cup of miso to add some umami, some flavor, some savory taste to it. We're gonna add about a quarter cup of nutritional yeast as well. Then we're gonna do about a tablespoon of coconut aminos, which is like a replacement for soy sauce. If you don't have this, you can use light soy sauce. Then we're gonna follow up with some avocado oil. This is gonna just help to bind everything together. About a tablespoon of avocado oil. So now we're gonna add a tablespoon of our mushroom seasoning. So this is made from dried mushrooms. We're gonna be using fresh mushrooms as well. I like to use like similar ingredients, dry and fresh, to like layer the flavor. So we're gonna do the OG now. We're gonna do some onion powder and garlic powder. We're gonna do a tablespoon of both. Tablespoon of onion powder. When you're seasoning tofu or when you're seasoning vegan food, period, you cannot be shy with the seasoning. You have to make sure you put enough seasoning. So a tablespoon of each, followed by some red pepper flakes. I'm gonna be a little bit more careful, probably a couple of teaspoons of red pepper flakes. But now that I'm on the dough, I just feel like, I don't feel like I'm too grown for black pepper. I just feel like the red pepper flakes just does it for me. So then we're gonna add about 2 teaspoons of dry oregano and dry basil. And this is similar things that we would season our chicken with to add that savory taste to our chicken. And then we're gonna add some salt. And that's it for our marinade. Now with the salt, I'm gonna be careful with the salt because the miso is a little salty and the coconut aminos is salty as well. So this is the salt we're gonna be using today. I'm gonna use about 2 teaspoons of sea salt. And as Nick mentioned earlier, it's high in minerals. And when we're working out, when we're sweating, we're losing those minerals. So when you drink water, it's adding back the water, but it's not adding back the minerals. So we need to make sure whatever we lose, we bring it back into our body. Okay, so that's it for the seasoning. I'm gonna mix this together and then I'm gonna incorporate the tofu. Here's our marinade, and now I'm going to crumble our tofu into the marinade and I'm going to mix it. You can see the texture is totally different than we usually buy tofu. It's like a spongy texture. It's gonna be very good at absorbing all of the seasonings we put in the marinade. So I'm gonna just like crumble off pieces, free form. I feel like when you cut the tofu perfect, it looks kind of, it doesn't really look too appetizing. So we're gonna crumble the tofu into the paste and then we're gonna mix it together. This should be good. Just want to make sure everything has a little bit of seasoning. Yep. All right, so let's get this in the oven. You can put a timer, like a 15-minute.
Okay, so I see a lot of color over there, right? What are we working with?
We're working with a lot of different root vegetables.
Okay.
We have, and I like that you mentioned that because I always say food should be like the rainbow, so we know we're getting all of our vitamins, all of our minerals, all of our nutrients. So we have red onion. We know that's good for anti-inflammatory. It's good for our circulatory system. Cute little red onion, star of the show. We have a green bell pepper. If your family's from the South, you know the trinity with cooking. It's onion, bell pepper, and celery. So I wanted to pay homage to that using the green bell pepper. And then I have some parsley just to impart some freshness, and also parsley helps to detox your body. It helps to clean heavy metals out of your body. It's not just to put a little parsley on top to be cute. It actually has a function. And we're gonna use the parsley leaves and the stems because with inflation, we're gonna use the whole thing. There's no point in just using the leaves. As we mentioned before, being vegan, you have to be very creative. So I felt like when I said the maitake mushrooms, it reminded me of like the chicken skin. And then like the tofu would be like to replace the chicken. So I felt like I wanted to have something that has like a similar texture as chicken skin in the soup, as well as the chicken itself. So we're gonna be using this to make it crispy, similar to the skin of chicken. The mushrooms, you see I'm breaking these mushrooms up with my hand just to give like more of like a natural look rather than like cutting it perfectly exactly.
Okay.
So
Nice and chunky.
Yep. I'll move on to the parsley. And like I mentioned before, we're gonna be using the whole thing of parsley. And this is something that I've been doing at home as well, just incorporating more fresh herbs into our diet. Okay, so our tofu has been in the oven for 15 minutes now. We see it has a little color to it. And I'm gonna mix it and throw it back in the oven. But we see it's getting nicely roasted. You can see the flavors building. Wish you guys could smell how it's smelling in here right now. But yeah, it's smelling really good. Okay, moving right along. We're gonna use these maitake mushrooms. Now, honestly, I haven't worked with these mushrooms. I wanted to come in today feeling creative, doing how I feel like doing things. So I haven't worked with these mushrooms in the past, but I felt confident that things would turn out good today. But like I said, when I saw them, I felt like it looked like similar to some crispy chicken skins. I didn't mention earlier, but we're also gonna add some leeks. We know leeks are like a type of onion as well. So we're gonna add that as well. So I'm gonna make our dumplings now. So with my grandfather's recipe, he used like buttermilk biscuits, the dough from buttermilk biscuits to make the dumplings. I'm gonna be using spelt flour. We know it's high in protein. We know it's good for, yeah.
I did not know that spelt flour is rich in protein.
Yep, and we know it's good for our digestive system. It's not processed. So it's gonna help whatever we have in there. It's gonna help to like flush it out. So I'm gonna use about a half a cup of the flour. Then we're gonna do about a teaspoon of our salt. And then we're going to slowly add the water in, and we're gonna mix it with our hand until it gets the right consistency. And then once we have some water boiling, we'll add the dumplings into the water. So I'm gonna make a small amount of dumplings. Like I said, we're making a small batch of soup. If you're making more, you can add more. So I'm gonna add a little water. I'm gonna incorporate that with my hand. We're using spring water. We know spring water is one of the better options. I'm also using water in a glass bottle, so it doesn't have any plastic. But I feel like now it's like we have so much pressure. Should I use a plastic bottle? Should I use a glass bottle? spring water. I can just say, just do your best. I'm kneading it together. I see it needs a little bit more water, so I'm gonna incorporate a little bit more water. With this, I would say we're doing about half a cup of water, but I would say to do it slowly at a time. You can, because if it gets too wet, then you're gonna need more flour, then you're gonna need more water, then you're gonna just have a big thing of dumplings, right? So I think it's best to just go slowly and incorporate the water. While we're sauteing our veggies, we're gonna have the the water boiling on the side for the dumplings. I'm gonna split off small pieces of dumplings. I prefer smaller pieces. If you prefer large dumplings, make yourself large dumplings. But I prefer small dumplings. So we're gonna just do small pieces of that. I'm gonna knead it for a couple of more minutes, then we'll move on to sauteing our veggies. And we got the tofu out the oven as well. The tofu has this whole place smelling really good right now, yep. Okay, so I would say this is a good batch, and I'm going to break that up a little later. I'm gonna let it rest and relax. So first I'm going to add the water here for our dumplings, some spring water, so that can boil. And then I'm gonna add a little salt to the water as well. Okay. Now I'm gonna add a little avocado oil to our pan. And the first thing I wanna saute is our mushrooms. So I'm doing the mushrooms first because I'm not gonna add any seasoning with the mushrooms. With mushrooms, I learned when you season them before you cook them, or when you incorporate salt before you cook them, it releases a lot of liquid. It doesn't hold the flavor well. So what I wanna do first is cook our mushrooms and then add the seasoning to them. So I'm adding in our shiitake, and like I mentioned before, we're not gonna constantly move it around. I wanna let it sit, let the flavors build, let it get some caramelization going. I'm gonna let the mushrooms do their thing, let them hang out, let them talk to each other. This is our tofu after we roasted it for 30 minutes in the oven, and we're going to add that to the soup at the end. So we see it's nice and crispy, nice and seasoned. All right, so I hear the mushrooms talking to me. Like I say, food is talking to you, saying, all right, can you mix us? We're ready now. So you can see we got some caramelization going on the mushrooms. You can see some light browning, and that's gonna be where we get all of that flavor from. Gonna move them a little bit, and then I can continue to cook. All right, I'm gonna take these out, then I'll add in our maitake mushrooms next. So I'm going to add these mushrooms. The maitake mushrooms. These mushrooms, I'm seeing they're browning faster than shiitake, maybe because it's like a thinner, lighter weight mushroom. All right. Then I'm going to move on to our dumplings. I'm going to take the bowl and I'm going to just like break off small pieces. And like I said, it takes a very little salt once you have the mushrooms cooked down. And then we're also seasoning the pan for the following veggies, right? So when we add the other veggies, just like all of this nice flavor we already have here from the mushrooms. And these ones contain more water, so it's going to be able to absorb all this flavor. All right. Move these dumplings a little. Right. So the maitake is done, and we're going to move on to the rest of our veggies. Add a little bit more oil. I'm going to do our onions and our leeks next. As well as our bell pepper and our celery. So we see some nice caramelization on these veggies. At this point, I'm gonna add a little salt. Now you see that I'm just add a very little amount of salt because I don't want to over salt because this is all gonna come together.
Yep.
I'm gonna add the garlic now. This should be good to go. We see the caramelization going. We see what's going on here. Let's get this out and move on to the last of our veggies. Okay, so I'm gonna add in the squash, carrots, and asparagus now. So we're gonna let this cook down a little like the other ingredients. Then we'll add our seasoning. I'm gonna put the rest of our rosemary and thyme. As well as the rest of our parsley. Add a little salt. And when I'm seasoning, I like to just make sure that everything gets a little seasoning on top. You don't have to like pour a bunch, just make sure everything gets a little and you should be fine. We also want to make sure that our veggies are bright in color. We don't want it to be too dull, too cooked down. I know we want to have some caramelization, but we don't want our food to be too dull. Once it's dull, we've lost most of the nutrients.
Yep.
So I like to go for a couple of more minutes and then we'll take this out and then build our base, build our roux, and incorporate everything back in together. And we'll see. Yep. All right, I'm gonna turn the flame off here so I can prepare to build our roux. And the roux is basically half fat and half flour. You can use whatever fat you would like to use. I'm using avocado oil today. Some people use butter. That's the traditional way to use butter or oil. So we're gonna be using avocado oil today. And we're going to be using the spelt flour as our flour. Okay. We added a couple tablespoons of oil. And now we're going to add some of our spelt flour. If you don't feel as confident using the bag, you can use a measuring spoon. Okay. So we wanted to have equal parts of both. Then I'm going to mix it. We want to have some browning to it, and we're gonna have like a popcorn like smell. That's when we know that our roux is ready. Now a roux you can use to your discretion how dark you want it to be. Some people like to make their roux really dark, like if they're making a gumbo. Okay, so based on this consistency, I can see it needs a little bit more flour. So I'm gonna just flatten this flour out, and then I'll add a little bit more flour. But we want it to have that smell of like cooking popcorn. That's when we know our roux is ready to go. And it should be like kind of like a paste. That's why I'm adding a little bit more flour because it's not seeming like that consistency to me. So now we see it's more like a paste consistency. And with the roux, your roux needs to be constantly moving. Your roux can burn very easily. So you're not gonna make a roux, go watch TV and come back. You're gonna have to be on top of it, constantly moving it. Okay, so I feel like we got a nice roux going, and so I'm going to slowly incorporate our vegetable stock, and I'm going to constantly mix it. Once you incorporate the stock, it needs to be constantly moving as well. You do a little at a time, and you don't add more until it's fully incorporated. So I added a little vegetable stock. It's fully incorporated. Now I add a little more. It's gonna look like a gravy at first.
See, I think that's where I mess up at.
A lot of people get intimidated at this point.
I add the veggie broth all at once.
Okay, yeah. Then it breaks. So you do a little at a time, and then as it gets thick, as it loosens up, you can feel comfortable adding a little bit more with each pour. So with each pour, make sure it's fully incorporated before you add more. So I'm gonna add some bay leaves now. You know, this helps to bring out the flavor and bring everything together. For a soup, I'm gonna add 3 bay leaves. I'm gonna add our dumplings because as we saw, the dumplings just got some salt, right? Doesn't have much flavor to it. So I'm gonna add the dumplings now to let them get some of this flavor we have going with the vegetable stock. And then we're going to slowly fold everything else in. So while I have the broth here with the dumplings in it, I'm gonna add some seasonings. And as we mentioned earlier, we want our flavors to mirror, right? So we're gonna use the similar seasonings we used earlier. I'm gonna add in some red pepper flakes, about a teaspoon. The vegetable broth has some seasoning, but it's not enough. I need some more. So we're gonna add some more. Onion, garlic, oregano, and basil. I'm not gonna add any more of the mushroom seasoning because I feel like we have enough of that on the tofu. Okay. So I'm just gonna use the rest of these dry spices. Yeah. Basil, and then I'm gonna add a little nutritional yeast to keep that umami flavor going. Okay, we see it simmering nicely. So we're going to add in our mushrooms, our onions, our carrots, our asparagus. I'm gonna add all of this in. Look at our soup. Continue to incorporate that in. I'm gonna lower the flame a little bit. We want it to simmer, not to boil. And when it's simmering, the flavors are just getting together, getting to know each other. Oh, that's your grandfather, that's my grandfather's uncle from that side of town. You know, they're just getting to know each other. Okay, now we're gonna add in our tofu. I'm gonna use about half of this tofu. Now, I'm going to add a little coconut aminos. And looking at the texture of it, I feel like it could take a little bit more. You know what? I was gonna say vegetable stock, but I'll add a little water to thin it out a little. A couple of dashes. I wanted to get like a little bit of a darker color to it. So I'm gonna add a couple of dashes of coconut amino. And then I'm gonna add a little bit water to thin it out a little bit. And to allow the things to be able to like flow freely and move around freely. Okay, so this is the texture we're looking for. Now since it's soup, I'm gonna let it sit and cook for a little while, let it get to know each other like we mentioned earlier.
Do we wanna cover it or no?
You don't have to cover it,
okay.
But do you see the tofu? We can see how it looks different than the dry tofu, how it absorbed all of those flavors from this from the veggie stock. So this is how we want it to be, nice and absorbing all the flavors. So when we bite into the tofu, we're getting all that flavor that we sat here and built together. So this is our dry tofu that we roasted, and this is our tofu that was in the soup. So I'm gonna try this and see if we need to add any more seasoning, if we need to adjust the seasoning. Okay, it's getting there. I feel like it needs a little bit more salt. And let me see, I'll add some more miso to it as well. So let's say a tablespoon of miso here, of miso paste. You know what, 2 teaspoons. I want to just let it, allow it to sit and cook for a little longer, but I believe the flavors are well balanced, so it's pretty good. And yeah, this is our tofu dumpling soup. So we have our tofu dumpling soup here. It's ready. We roasted our tofu. We sauteed our veggies. We got our veggies nice and caramelized, and then we built our soup from a roux all the way up to what you see right here. Our tofu and dumpling soup. I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's get this plated up. We got
Look
the
at that.
tofu, the mushrooms, the maitake mushrooms, the shiitake mushrooms. We got the rosemary, the dumplings, the spelt flour.
All in
Right?
here.
Yeah.
All in here. Look at the tofu. You've never seen tofu like this before. I promise you, you haven't. And if you haven't seen it like this before, that means you haven't tasted it like this before. So let's go ahead and try it out. I caught a dumpling. That was good. Wow.
And the mushrooms just give it so much texture as well.
Off camera, I was describing this soup and I was saying it has a very earthy undertone to it, right? And I think that that's where the roux comes in. Also, just being Haitian, we have a lot of soup in our diet. You know, we have bouillon, we have jumu, and this kind of gives me that reminiscent feel of that earthy undertone when I'm eating Haitian soup, right? So that was really incredible. The dumpling, the spelt flour dumpling, didn't taste any different than the regular flour dumpling, you know? The mushrooms were really good. So we gotta rewind, right? Back to when she was picking off the mushrooms with just her hands and saying, well, I still wanna give it that chicken taste. And that's exactly what it did. It was extremely rubbery and slippery, just like chicken, right? But without the chicken. You get what I'm saying? So this soup right here, you can eat it by itself. You can have your bread on the side and then just dip and then dip and then dip. Or you could also do it with some white rice. But how we doing it today? We doing it just like this.
Tofu and dumplings.
Amazing.
Thank you.
And you know what? We cooking with Quiaufa today. She came through, she blessed me, she blessed the crib, because now this crib smelling so good. So if you want to see more recipes like this, give your boy a thumbs up, hit that like button, and hit that subscribe button. Let's get it. Thank you for watching another episode of Eating Vegan with Nick and Cooking with Quiaufa. Let's get it.